Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another Draft Class Digest video. This time, throwing it back, 1996. Fred, how are we feeling?
Dude, feeling great. This is an amazing draft class. Arguably the best.
Yeah, try not to give too much of it away here. If you guys haven't tuned into our first digest video, go check that out. We're going to be going through 8 different draft classes, breaking them down. And then at the end, we're going to be doing a little tournament style type thing to see who we think the best draft class is of all time. And without giving it away, 96 makes a really, really good case. But we have lots of preparation for this. I watched another YouTube channel, pretty well known. Maybe you've heard of it, Six Rings of Steel. Kind of break down this draft class just a little bit. He has no clue what he's talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Didn't know any of these guys. Thought Jason Kidd was a part of this draft class. We know what we're talking about here. We know what's going on. So if you want quality content and what we know and what we're talking about, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Fred, we're gonna follow the same kind of pattern we did with the 2017 draft class. Let's talk about this draft class heading into the draft, where they were in college, high school, and coming into the night of the draft. So you want to start us off here?
Yeah, man. I've highlighted the main guys. Of
Yeah.
course, we had the overseas guys that I wasn't really too studied up on. The Peja Stojakovic's of the world, the Big Z's of the world. But we start out with the number 1 pick, Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
A consensus 5-star coming out of high school, of course, for football and in basketball. Absolute stud. Ended up at Georgetown for John Thompson. Thompson. Yeah, John. Yeah. Jeez. Stayed 2 years for the Big East school out in Georgetown when Georgetown was Georgetown. I'm going to highlight his sophomore year, of course. He's a 2-time NCAA All-Region guy. Big East Freshman of the Year. 2-time All Big East, 2-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year.
I was about to say, Defensive Player of the Year for Allen Iverson's insane when you think about him in the league and whatnot. He was averaging like 5 steals a game, a lot of steals. I think one.
Yeah, 3.5 steals his sophomore year.
Yeah,
3 his freshman year. I mean, 25 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds. Of course, went number 1 overall, like I just said. And that leads us to the number 2 pick. A guy that was coached by my coach, John Calipari, at UMass, Marcus Camby. Dude's rise was insane. We know the size. He's 6'11". He's a beast. Every year got better. 10 points his freshman year, 13 points his sophomore year. And his junior year, Caleb, 21 a game, 8 rebounds, led his team to dragged them no names to the Final Four. Got John Calipari a better job. Marcus Camby.
He was the player of the year in college that year after that phenomenal season his junior year. Yeah, I mean, Camby was legit, very, very solid in college. And as you'll see as we get into his pro career, had a long career in the NBA as well.
Yeah. 3rd pick, Shareef Abdur-Rahim, the Cal product. 1 year at Cal, dude was a beast. Can score it with the best of them. Another one of these highly recruited kids. Stayed out west when it was the Pac-10. 21 points a game. Also had 8 rebounds a game. Fun fact for you. He was the Pac-10 player of the year that year. All Pac-10, all freshman, and Pac-10 rookie of the year, obviously. 6'9", 225. Could absolutely stroke it. He was just the beast. And that leads to the 4th pick. Like I said, I'll go through all of them. Just wanted to highlight the main guys. Stephon, one of my favorite players of all time. Stephon Marbury, absolute beast. Went to G-Tech, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech actually has some pretty notable alumni, including my man right here. Only played 1 year for G-Tech out in Atlanta, 19 points a game, 4 assists. Was the all ACC team, all ACC tourney team, all CC all freshman team, and the rookie of the year out in the ACC. Just a flashy kid that I love. Into the 5th pick, Ray Allen, Big East star for UConn Huskies. Was 2-time All Big East, 2-time All Big East tourney, Big East All Freshman, and the 95-96 Big East Player of the Year, Big Ray Allen, before he was just a shooter.
Yeah.
23 points a game, 3 assists, 6.5 rebounds, also averaged close to 2 steals a game. Dude was just a beast. I loved him. Highly recruited kid. Just stayed 3 years at UConn, developed his game, and worked his way up to that pick. And the final guy I want to highlight in college, of course, I want to just quick shout out Derek Fisher out in Little Rock, but Steve Nash at Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Not a highly recruited kid, Caleb.
No.
Nobody knew who Steve Nash
wasn't well known. Like, this is right before, like, I shouldn't say right before, but this is before, like, the internet's big boom and everything. So, I mean, unless you're in that area, and even still, if you're around that area, you probably still don't know who Steve Nash is. But it's like, majority of the people learning about Steve Nash and that knew about Steve Nash are getting the information from the video package they have right after he gets selected.
Yeah, and he went 15th overall.
Yeah.
He's a Canadian kid. He's from Canada. Freshman year, 8 points. Okay.
Yeah.
Sophomore year, 15 points. Big jump junior year, Caleb. 21 points a game, 6.5 assists, 2 steals. Going into senior year, he had kind of a less good year there. 17 points, 6
I believe
assists.
he got injured that year.
Yeah, he did. He only played, let's see. No, so it looks like he got injured his junior year.
I knew it was like one of his last. Yeah.
Yeah. 2-time West Coast Conference Player of the Year. Just an absolute beast. As you can see, a lot of these guys were the highly recruited, like Allen Iverson. Of course, Marcus Camby, had the intangibles, but still wasn't as highly recruited, of course, going to UMass. Sharif Abdur-Rahim, Stephon Marbury, Ray Allen, even guys like Antoine Walker, who went to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Just a highly recruited kid. Like I said, Derek Fisher, another guy just came out of nowhere, played out of Little Rock in the Sun Belt. But he averaged 17 his junior year, 14 his senior year. Like, you had kind of the no names, but you also had the highly recruited guys to round out such a beautiful class. And then of course you had the high school stars in Kobe, Bean Bryant, and Jermaine O'Neal. Just an absolute star-studded class with so many different walks of life. And then you add in, like I said, the foreign guys, the Peja Stojakovic's, the Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Just a beautiful class, Caleb. That's where they were.
Yeah. I mean, you hit on all the college success. I mean, Allen Iverson was the clear number 1 pick. Wasn't even up for debate. Nobody came close. Marcus Camby, very, very solid. Great big man, especially in the time back then in the league when big men were still very much needed, and the game flowed through them. You had Sharif Abdur-Rahim, who was one of the most highly talented prospects from this class that was, went to Cal for a year, whatnot. Ray Allen, Stephon Marbury, like you mentioned. Antoine Walker, this is right after Kentucky won a championship. This is, you got to think, like, Ray Allen stayed multiple years. Allen Iverson stayed 2 years. Antoine Walker walked into Kentucky, helped them win a championship, left. That's unheard of back then. You had guys like Samaki Walker at Louisville, who wasn't bad. Kerry Kittles at Villanova.
Yeah, I remember it now too.
Number 8 pick. We'll get into him just a little bit. And guys, Peja Stojakovic overseas came off a broken leg, and then worked his way back to being a top 15 pick. Tony Delk out of Kentucky, big part of it. Jermaine O'Neal, like you said. There's some highlights I want to get to here. Kobe, obviously, is the name head and tails above this class. Yep. Kobe worked out for a lot of teams because nobody knew what to do with him. At this point, there was no guards coming out of high school. It was all big men. KG had just came out the year before, straight out of high school. Yeah. So nobody knew what to expect out of a guard coming out so early. Won the Philadelphia State Championship his senior year, broke, I think, a scoring record Wilt held in Philadelphia. So Kobe was working out for all these teams because nobody knew what to do with him. But by all reports, he was killing every workout, every single workout, absolutely killing it. But there were still so many questions because how young he was and physically how he was going to match up. Calipari, like you mentioned, this was going into his first year coaching the New Jersey Nets. According to Cal, he wanted to take Kobe number 8. The Nets hosted Kobe for 3 separate workouts, 3 different occasions, and Kobe killed every single one of them. And Cal went as far to take Kobe's parents out to dinner the night before the draft. And they were talking to each other. Kobe's dad was talking Kobe up, talking about how great Kobe was going to be and everything. Cal wanted to apparently take him. Now, hindsight's 2020. Cal could just be saying all this because of how well Kobe ended up being. But Cal apparently wanted to take him. Higher ups, though, said, no, you're not taking a high schooler your first year. Made him take Kerry Kittles, who Kerry Kittles was a good NBA player, dealt with injuries and whatnot. And so on and so on. But, up through this point, you have guys, Jermaine O'Neal goes right after Steve Nash, or you got Peja Stojakovic, Steve Nash, Tony Delk, Jermaine O'Neal. All guys three out of those four were really, really good. Tony Delk has a couple good years in the NBA. Put up a 50 bomb in the NBA once. Derek Fisher goes later on. You had guys like Jerome Williams out of Georgetown who had a nice little run for a little bit. Othello Harrington played for like 12 years in the NBA, wasn't bad. We'll get into like how well these guys were later on. But Brett, I have some screen grabs from the draft of certain players after they were drafted, what these analysts were saying were the strengths and what the weaknesses were. So why don't we get right into that, and we'll transition into where these guys were throughout their career. Allen Iverson, his strengths were he had excellent speed and great court vision. I could agree, very, very quick guy. I mean, Iverson's only like maybe in shoes with some heels in them, 6 foot, maybe.
Yeah.
His weaknesses were he sometimes had erratic play, which I can agree with, and he was a shoot first, pass second kind of guard, which I would very much agree with, and I think that would contribute into why he didn't have as much success as he could.
He also had the off-court issue.
That's true. We're a couple years after him getting out of jail and whatnot.
Yeah.
But for him to come out, and I think his sister was sick, so his sister he came out because of to get the money to help his family out. Yeah. Marcus Camby, his strengths: shot blocker and low post game. Shot blocker, absolutely. We'll get into his career. He was 4-time All Defense, 4-time block champ, and the Defensive Player of the Year 1 year. I think that sticks. That's pretty true there. Sharif Abdur-Rahim, he had an active inside game and a raw talent were his strengths, and his weaknesses were he needed to get stronger. Can't disagree. I think Sharif Abdur-Rahim was a guy that could put up big numbers. It wasn't going to really affect winning though, and you'll see throughout his career. Stephon Marbury, great talent / very athletic. I would agree.
Yes.
He has NBA point skills from day one. I would say so. He bounced around early on his career, ended up with KG. And that's one of the big storylines from this draft was the Bucks take Marbury and Ray Allen gets taken by Minnesota.
Yeah.
And Stephon Marbury and Ray Allen get traded for each other. Marbury goes to Minnesota with KG, works out. They looked good together at times, and Ray Allen had a good run in Milwaukee. Ray Allen, his strengths were ball handling skills and shooting. I want to mention that because I do think that gets overlooked because people just envision Ray Allen now as just a shooter.
Especially our generation.
When he was in Milwaukee and when he was in Seattle, that dude could ball. I mean, that dude was legit. He was athletic. He was springy. He could get to the rim. He wasn't just a stand around shooter. And I feel like that's what his game was originally, was like get to the rim, shooting second. And as it turns out later on, changed quite a bit. Kerry Kittles, people were really, really high on him. He could create his own jump shot, and he was a pretty smart player. He was a good player. Only played 8 seasons in the NBA, got injured, whatnot. Kobe Bryant's strengths: very athletic, which Kobe at young age in those first several years in LA, athletic freak,
stupid.
And his another strength was a good all-around game. I would agree. I mean, Kobe's top. I'm biased. I love Kobe. He's my top 1 of all time. But no matter where you are, Kobe's a top 10 player of all time. So all-around game, I think, is very safe to say. His weaknesses, according to this, was he was 2 or 3 years away from impact. I don't know if that's necessarily wrong. He struggled early on, but I think his second and third years when we really started to see him take that big leap and realize, this dude's legit. So you can't knock him for that, I guess. Peja Stojakovic, who was going at this time by Predrag. I'm sure there's another way to pronounce it, but Predrag Stojakovic. His strengths were shooting range and a scorer. That I think people don't realize how good Peja Stojakovic was, and we'll get into him.
Bucket, bro.
And last one I have, Steve Nash. His strengths were strong point guard skills and very aggressive and competitive. Very, very true.
Yes.
Very, very true. Weakness, and this is what I love. This was a great weakness point out. Too selective with shots. Steve Nash, if he shot the ball more while he was playing, he would be even better than what he was. He was just a pass first kind of guy, shoot second, the complete opposite of Allen Iverson. And I love that weakness because that reigned true throughout his whole career.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he definitely used his strengths though. I mean, and it carried him to back-to-back MVPs. So.
Yeah, some quick points I have that made me kind of chuckle. I was watching kind of some draft videos or some video from the draft. Rick Pitino was an analysis or whatever on this draft. Right after winning a championship in Kentucky, Antoine Walker gets taken. So of course Pitino's going to hype up his guy. Says Rick Pitino said Antoine Walker reminded him of a Magic Johnson in the open floor. Not the best take there from Rick Pitino.
Antoine Walker was good too. I mean, he's not.
Hubie Brown was on this draft. He said Kobe makes everyone else around him better. I think a lot of people, Kobe haters, would very much disagree. You know, everybody loves.
He won. It's kind of hard to.
Yeah, everybody loves to talk about how big of a ball hog he was and whatnot. But I mean, from day one, people are saying Kobe makes everyone around. I mean, especially in high school, you got to think about like that. He's the man in high school. He's probably never passing the ball. And right,
it's not like he played like in like a huge prep school like Oak Hill, where he had also 5 stars next to him. You know.
One last thing, then we'll get into where they were throughout their career. They were saying Steve Nash is a poor man's John Stockton from day one. What a comparison. What a comparison.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
And I think you could have a debate of which one was better throughout their career.
John Stockton's a much better defender.
Yeah, but I'm saying like I don't think it's a poor man. I think it's like 1A, 1B almost. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would still give the edge to Stockton, but Steve Nash was top.
Yeah. But Fred, we'll hop right into it here. Where were they throughout their career? And I want to highlight some notable names. Guys that I recognize and guys that played for several years, or at least while they played, made an impact. I don't have as many as last video's names, but we'll get right into it. Allen Iverson played 14 years. Marcus Camby, 17 years. Shareef Abdur-Rahim, 12 years. Marbury, 13. Ray Allen, 18. Antoine Walker, 12. Lorenzen Wright played 13 years. Kerry Kittles only played 8 years, dealt with injuries. Samaki Walker played 10 years. He was an NBA champion. Eric Dampier played 16 years. Vitaly Potapenko played 11. He not a bad, decent role player for Kobe Bryant, 20 years. Peja Stojakovic, 13. Steve Nash, 18. Tony Delk, I think that says 10. It's either 10 or 6. It's 10. 10 years. Jermaine O'Neal, 18. John Wallace, 7. Walter McCarty, also out of Kentucky, 10 years. Zydrunas Ilgauskas, 13. Derek Fisher, 18. Jerome Williams, 9. Othello Harrington, 12. Jeff McGinnis, 11. Randy Livingston, 11. Malik Rose played 13. I remember Malik Rose. Shandon Anderson with 10. And then we had 2 players, Fred, that weren't drafted that were notable names. You already know the one of them, so why don't you talk about him just a little bit?
Who?
Big Ben Wallace, baby.
Ben Wallace, bro, is the most underappreciated pro, I think, of our generation, bro. Well, I guess last generation. What that man did defensively, I don't think we've seen anything like it since.
No, he was 6'6", going up against Shaq in the finals and making Shaq
a bully.
Yeah.
A bully.
Yeah. Dude,
the fro, he couldn't do anything else. But by God, could he defend? Like, he was kind of like, I don't want to say Dennis Rodman-esque, but he had that knack, bro. Maybe not from a rebounding standpoint, but at his size, be able to lock down those bigs like that, especially in this era where the big was still relevant. Come on.
Ben Wallace played 16 years. Not all of them productive, but played 16 years nonetheless, being undrafted. NBA champ, as we know. Last notable name I have that was undrafted, Chucky Atkins. You remember Chucky Atkins?
I don't remember Chucky
Atkins had a little run on the Lakers for a little. It's where I mostly remember him, but played 11 seasons as well. But Fred, let's get right into it here. Where were these guys at the peak of their powers throughout their career? What was notable? I've got the notable names written down. We've got, I missed some guys like Samaki Walker, who contributed to a championship team in the Lakers in 2000. Eric Dampier was very, very solid, big man for a long time. Lorenzen Wright, 13 years. He was a nice little role player for a bit. Other than that, like All these other names, like they might have had like a year or two. Like Tony Delk, I thought was pretty solid there for a bit. Like I said, put up a 50 bomb randomly in the NBA. But there's notable names here that we need to hit for throughout the peak of their career. So I'm going to bring up their name. I'll ask you what you thought about them, you know, at the peak of their powers, through how long, or whatever, and then I'll list off all their accolades. We'll start off here, Fred. The highest name of them all, Kobe Bryant.
Longevity. I mean, he did it so well for so long. You know, kind of with LeBron, our Jordan. I mean, every year he had the Lakers competing. Of course, towards the tail end of his career, it was, rough with injuries and stuff. But every year he was on the court, he was battling, dude. And I can still see his fade away in my mind. The post fade. I mean, an all-time great for sure. I mean, at the peak of his career, it was give him the ball. You know it was going to happen. He was clutch. He defended, I thought, well. Like, I think defense was definitely underrated for him, especially in his younger years when he still had his legs. I mean, it's Kobe Bryant. It's the game.
I mean, we're looking at a guy that every single asset of the game he was very excellent at. A very, very solid defender. Obviously, one of the top scorers of all time. Just a complete and total amazing player.
And a good leader. Like, Jordan was the same way in his personality.
He drew it out of you in a different way, and not everybody could respond to that.
He won 5 championships. Can't deny that.
We'll look at it here. Kobe Bryant's career. He's a Hall of Famer, 18-time All-Star, 2-time scoring champ, 5-time NBA champion, 15-time All-NBA, 12-time All-Defense, 4-time All-Star MVP, the 2007-2008 MVP, 2-time Finals MVP, top 75 player of all time. What a career.
He's 2-time Finals MVP. That's 3 finals that he wasn't MVP. Doesn't make people around him better.
Here's my thing.
Pau Gasol better.
People will hold that against him. You could put MJ, you could put LeBron with Shaq at the peak of his powers. Nobody's getting an MVP in finals over Shaq. Nobody. The dominance, the most dominant player ever in the game, you're not getting an MVP over him. I mean, but as we saw, Kobe and Shaq play when they were playing well together, when they got along, were phenomenal.
Yeah, but he made Shaq better, and Shaq made him better. I mean, it's just what it is.
25 points, 5.2 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 1.4 steals on his career. That's his career averages. We'll move on here. Steve Nash, Fred.
Yeah,
Steve Nash.
Don Dropper. I mean, I remember in 4th grade when he broke his nose and wore a Band-Aid over his nose. I was wearing a Band-Aid to school on my nose. Like, I related to Steve Nash because he was a short white guy. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
I couldn't be a Marcus Camby. I couldn't be Antoine Walker, a Ray. Like, I looked at Steve Nash as a shorter white guy, skinny, didn't look like he belonged out there, but he played amongst them and dominated for a long time. Won back-to-back MVPs. Now it's debatable if he should have won, But in his prime, especially with Amari Stoudemire, forget about it, bro. I mean,
we're looking at a guy
passes he made, insane.
We're looking at a guy who's revolutionary to the game of basketball the way it's played today.
Yeah.
Fast pace, run and gun, spread the floor, get the open shot. Steve Nash's career: Hall of Famer, 8-time All-Star, 5-time assist champion, 7-time All-NBA, 2-time MVP, and a top 75 member. I think the 2-time MVP, and that contributes to what I said earlier, he was just groundbreaking. What he was doing was new, and it was resulting in wins. So you can argue other guys should have won, but at the time, Steve Nash dominance, that Suns team, the run and gun, 7 seconds or less Suns, were changing the game of basketball. And without them, it's not the way it is today. Simple as that.
I agree.
Fred, I'm going to ask you this before I get to Allen Iverson. If we're doing a redraft, do you take Allen Iverson above Steve Nash?
Yeah, I do.
I don't even consider it. I think Steve Nash, you can plug him into any system, and he's going to make everyone around him better. And he's going to get the most out of everybody. Allen Iverson needs the ball in his hands. He's going to put up a lot of shots. And I mean, don't get me wrong. He was a dominant scorer for a long, long time. I just think Nash is a plug-and-play kind of guy that you can throw in with anybody, and he's going to get the best out of any system, any team, any teammates that he has around him. I would even go as far to argue, if we're doing a redraft, which we could do someday, I would take Ray Allen over Allen Iverson.
Sure.
I think Ray Allen, another guy you can plug in. He's going to be a spot-up shooter. He's going to be able to do the right things and whatnot, and also on the defensive end. But I'm not an Allen Iverson hater in the slightest, so let's get into Allen Iverson here, Fred. Fred, talk about a little of Allen Iverson.
Misunderstood. You know what the most staggering stat was that I read off of his?
What's that?
41 minutes per game in his
played
career.
a lot of games, yeah. Played a lot of minutes.
41 minutes.
Mm-hmm. A lot of minutes.
That's an average of his whole career.
Yeah.
He wanted to be out there. I mean,
the most he played.
I mean, he crossed Jordan.
The most he played in one season, minutes per game, was 43.7. Unreal stuff there.
To say he didn't care is just, I think, it's just ludicrous.
I agree. I think that gets a little ridiculous and whatnot. But we're looking at a guy that, scoring-wise, was very, very dominant. I just don't think impacted the game in a winning way. And as you saw, other than the 1 year where they made the playoff run, other than that, I don't think he ever got out of the second round, ever, other than the one. So playoff success comes a part of it and whatnot, but you could also say the same thing about Steve Nash and whatnot. But, I mean, so here's Allen Iverson's career stats. Or I forgot to mention Steve Nash's. He's averaged 14.3 points, 3 rebounds, 8.5 assists for his career. Great player. Allen Iverson is a Hall of Famer, 11-time All-Star, 4-time scoring champ, 3-time steals champ, 7-time All-NBA, 96-97 Rookie of the Year, 2-time All-Star MVP, the 2000-2001 MVP, and a top 75 player of all time. And it's still a very, very good career. Very good career.
Top 75 is a heck of an accomplishment.
For his career, he averaged 26.7 points, 3.7 rebounds, 6.2 assists. And that's on top of his last couple years. He averaged from 09, he played from 09 to 2010, he averaged less than 20. So, I mean, like, that brings it down. Like, 2009, 2010, his career high, or his high of that season, because he played for 2 different teams. So he played for Philadelphia for a little bit. His last year, he averaged 13. So, I mean, that brings it down a little bit. So just think about if that wasn't the case. You know, he's averaging close to 30 points a game. Phenomenal stuff. For his career, averaged 2.2 steals as well. So great stuff there from Allen Iverson, another top name in this loaded draft class. Ray Allen's the next guy, Fred. What do you remember about Ray Allen?
I don't remember as much as him when he was dominant in, like, Milwaukee and, you know, when he was young and spry. But, I mean, he was the spot-up shooter before the spot-up shooter was cool, man. I mean, everybody remembers the rebound Bosh, kick out to Allen, bang. I mean, he hit clutch shots. I mean, you don't see a lot of standstill shooters right now who career averaged 19 points a game. He understood that he couldn't do what he was doing for as long as he wanted to do it. He said, you know what? I'm going to learn how to shoot and shoot better than anybody else and have a long NBA career and win championships. And he did just that.
Well, I think it's interesting because, you know, in Milwaukee, they almost, I think they played Allen Iverson in the conference finals the year that the 76ers went to the championship. And you could argue the Bucks should have, gone. I remember in studying for this and whatnot, it was a highly controversial reffing series and whatnot. But he's a player, if not the best player at the time, going to a team that could have or should have made the NBA finals from early on. Goes to Seattle, still very dominant, starts to become more of a shooter, but still a phenomenal all-around player from his first several years in the league. Mm-hmm. Then switches it up, goes to Boston, and becomes more of a spot-up shooter, 3-and-D kind of guy. Then switches it up again and goes to Miami, and it's just a spot-up shooter, and plays that role perfectly. So you're looking at like 3 or 4 different instances of Ray Allen changing his career up to have the second longest career of this draft class. So
he played a role to win, and
you got to think, like, his last years in the NBA, he's playing on finals teams, playing big minutes. So longevity wise, he's very effective from day one, and I think that's why I would edge him out over a guy like Allen Iverson as well. But Ray Allen, for his career, Hall of Famer, 10-time All-Star, 2-time NBA champ, 2-time All-NBA, top 75 player of all time. 18.9 points, 4.1 rebounds, and 3.4 assists. Great stats. Great. I mean, just another top guy in this loaded draft class. Marcus Camby, Fred, he was the second pick in this draft. 4-time block champ, 4-time all defense, 06-07 Defensive Player of the Year. Just another guy that played 17 years in the NBA and made it work. I mean,
underappreciated for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Sharif Abdur-Rahim, one-time All-Star. A guy, like I said, who could put up big stats but never really contributed to winning and never really did much.
Yeah.
18
Great
points.
career,
18 points on his career, 7.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists. Stephon Marbury, one of your favorites growing up. The shoes, the Starberries.
Starberry, baby. Come on.
Two-time All-Star, two-time All-NBA, 19.3 points, 3.0 rebounds, 7.6 assists. A guy that at the top, like at the peak of his powers, was one of the best point guards in the league, but then kind of phased out really quickly. Ended up in Boston for a year and then just became a god in China. I enjoyed Marbury to an extent. I remember him on the cover of NBA Ballers, that video game.
Yeah, he kind of played like a street baller.
Him and Iverson were like groundbreaking at the time for bringing in like a new attitude into the NBA. Whereas guys like Ray Allen and Steve Nash were groundbreaking for the way basketball is played today. Does that make sense?
I agree.
Antoine Walker, Fred, a three-time All-Star, an 06 NBA champ, and for his career averaged 17.5 points, 7.7 rebounds, 3.5 assists. This is a theme, I think, for this draft class as we've seen and as we'll continue to see. Guys, and this is why I value this draft class so much, guys that play important roles or at least contribute to NBA championship teams. I think that's undervalued. Antoine Walker played on that 06 championship team with the Miami Heat and was a part of something, that led them to a title. I think that's important. What do you remember about Antoine Walker?
He was kind of the first wave of point forwards kind of coming into the league. And of course, he's beloved by Kentucky fans.
The shimmy.
Of course. Yeah, he was good. I mean, like I said, he was a point forward. He's quick with the ball, but he's also a brute, man. He was big, strong, physical. He did everything well.
Peja Stojakovic is our next name. Three-time All-Star. 2011 NBA champion. Stuck in a championship there with the Mavericks the year that they won towards the end of his career. He was the 03-04 All-NBA team. Was fourth or fifth in MVP voting that year, Fred. Think about that.
Yeah, absolutely could stroke it, man. I mean, when you think of best shooters of all time, you gotta put Peja's name in.
Peja is Klay Thompson before Klay Thompson.
Probably less of a defender, but yeah.
But could do more with the ball too. I shouldn't say could, but like Klay doesn't dribble a lot.
No, he looks kind of stiff when he does dribble. Peja was smooth.
Peja all around was smooth. I think
a lot of the guys from overseas, because they played pro so long. I mean,
yeah. In Sacramento, he's really solid. Had a good year, a couple years with the Hornets, and then was playing like 17 minutes a game for the Dallas Mavericks the year they won the championship. Another guy that contributed to a championship. Jermaine O'Neal is our next guy, Fred. His first several years played with Portland, didn't do anything. Didn't hardly play at all. Gets traded to Indiana, and then immediately just becomes a guy. He was a six-time All-Star, three-time All-NBA. For 3 straight years, he was a top 15 player in the league. And I think that contributes to him going to Indiana. And as we see, as soon as he goes to Indiana, he's the 01-02 most improved player. Just goes, plays, and I mean, I remember those Indiana teams: Ron Artest, Reggie Miller, Jamal Tinsley, Steven Jackson, Jeff Foster. I mean, what I just remember. What was it? Austin Crozier off the bench. God. Oh my God! I remember. That's the closest NBA team we have, and I remember going to a couple games as a kid. Just wow, I love that Pacers team. Like, for the pinstripe jerseys were nasty. Yeah. Oh my God!
A lot of people remember Jermaine O'Neal because of the Malice at the Palace, because he swung on somebody. But come on, I don't blame those guys.
If the Malice in the Palace doesn't happen, I think we're looking at a realistic world where the Pacers could win an NBA championship that year.
Yeah, I feel bad for Reggie Miller at that point.
Yeah. Next guy is Zydrunas Ilgauskas, who is a 2-time All-Star, Fred. 13 points, 7 rebounds, and 1.1 assists on his career. Just a guy that had a nice career in the NBA, wasn't going to do anything crazy. The 2-time All-Star is probably just, the fact that he played with a guy named LeBron James. Yeah. But,
I remember him because, like, being born in Akron, like, my dad's a big Cavs fan, so I as at a young age, I watched the Cavs play, and I was like, who's this big, tall, white guy? Kind of goofy looking.
Our next guy, Fred, was a 5-time NBA champion, and that is Derek Fisher. Five-time NBA champ. That's pretty much his only career significance. Averaged 8.3 points, 2.1 rebounds, 3.0 assists. Only 3 assists a game kind of surprised me. But then I was like, he's playing with Kobe Bryant, who doesn't come off screens, who can just go get a bucket anywhere.
Underrated defender. He was a bulldog, man.
A great defender. Played for a long time as well. I mean, Derek Fisher played 18 seasons.
Coming out of a small school, I mean, just a bulldog. That's when I think of Derek Fisher, I think of bulldog.
Loved Derek Fisher. Loved his kind of ugly form where it came like behind his head. Oh, I loved Derek Fisher growing up a Laker fan. The last guy we'll highlight here, Fred, is Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace was a Hall of Famer, 4-time All-Star, 2-time rebound champ, the 01-02 block champ, 04 NBA champion, 5-time All-NBA, which really surprised me, 6-time All-Defense, and 4-time Defensive Player of the Year.
How many points did he average on his career?
5.7.
Kids, play a role.
5.7 points, 9.6 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 1.3 steals, and 2.0 blocks. Insane. Ben Wallace is 6'6". Ben Wallace is 6'6".
He knew what he was good
at. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year.
An NBA champion.
Fred, this draft class brought back a lot of memories, a lot of fun. Yeah. I mean, we grew up in the peak of this draft class's powers. I loved this draft class. I love so many guys out of this draft class. And without giving it away, it's going to be hard to beat this draft class in our little end of the series tournament.
I mean, 03 is going to compete, but it's still just so many good names. I mean, not a lot of busts.
No, I mean, out of 58 selections, I think 47 played. So even still, that's not bad.
And back in the day, you didn't see a lot of second rounders even make rosters. So
yeah, so I mean, through and through, you've got Allen Iverson going number 1, phenomenal career for him. You've got Kobe Bryant, who just blossomed to become one of the best basketball players we've ever seen. You've got Ray Allen, 18 years in the league, who was very, very effective every single year. You had Steve Nash change the game of basketball as it's played today. You just had great basketball all the way through with this draft class. Phenomenal stuff, Fred.
Yeah, absolutely love this class, man.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was a whole lot of fun. I love doing these draft class digests. Let us know if there's draft class you want us to hit on, because we'll gladly break it down and give our little thoughts and throw it into the mix for the end of the series tournament. But until then, we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. We will see you all later. Stay tuned in for all the stuff we got coming out and all the stuff that has come out. Love you all. See ya.